And we're live. Well, once again, your high vibe conversation. I'm your host, Shel Shapiro. With me today are these lovely, amazing ladies. In clockwise, hopefully it's the same on your screen. We've got Dorit Carlson, Linda Vetrus Nichols, Jenny Langren, and Stephanie. And today we're going to be talking all about responsibility. So we want to remind you that high vibe conversations are a safe space. Invite you to share as we talk through our life lessons and hold space for you to work through yours. So if at any time you are resonating with some of the things that we're sharing, feel free to leave us a comment for us to happily engage with you. Or if you want to do it more privately, make sure to connect with us and we continue the conversation from there. So without further ado, let's hop into responsibility. I'm going to kick it off a little bit more about what that means to me, because being responsible, hence the hyphen, means having the ability to use all control, skill, and knowledge to take care of ourselves, even when it's difficult. So I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of self-control here. We've all probably experienced being in a conversation with a colleague, a boss, a family member, a friend, or a complete stranger where the conversation isn't really going your way and you want to react. Your inclination to snap back, be defensive, um, be a little bit more aggressive, or even the opposite, to shrink down and be more aggressive in the way you respond to what's coming at you, really. So when we think about our responsibility, we have the ability to react and control our own emotional responses and the way that we judgment. So again, whether that's to be more aggressive in our response, or more passive, or anywhere between, there's probably a lot more that we can be doing to neutralize the situation and reclaim that safety and power for ourselves. So I know I experience this regularly. I feel like I'm being tested more and more these days about how I respond. And I say this often, but like it's something that really sticks in my mind. How Jenny shares of knowing where someone else ends in, right? That separation. So I'm noticing a lot more for myself when I interact with people where that divide allows me to hold up a boundary even firmer, to not let other people cross over it, but also not to barrel through somebody else's boundaries when I that they might be in a different place than I am. And I take full responsibility for that. I know that it's how somebody else responds and is out of my control, but I control what is within me and what I can do with that. So since I've brought it there, once Jenny, I'm going to pass the baton to you to kick it off and continue. What's coming up for you when we're talking about responsibility?
For me, it's that lately I've had a rule, a filter for myself. That is, I don't have to respond. And that really is reclaiming my power, that I choose what I engage with, who I engage with, and what I engage in. And it's really about giving myself time to be responsible, to find that sense of clarity and figure out, what do I want? And you all know that I am a responder by my personality, that when someone approaches me and asks me to do something or engage with something, I'm very quick to feel like I have a response in the moment. But for me, it's really been about giving myself that time to gain perspective and clarity on what path I really want to take. And sometimes I recognize that I don't owe it to people. I don't always have to respond. And sometimes I do want to respond, and that's lovely. So that's one thing that comes to mind. It's gaining time And another is that what I engage with will grow in my life. And I like to use the image of social media. Sometimes I see posts on LinkedIn or Facebook that I don't particularly resonate with. And I know that if I engage in what is not aligned with me, the algorithms are just going to make that appear in my feed even more. Even if my comment is to respond, share a different view, or let my thoughts be known to the author or whatever, just the fact that we engage with something on social media usually means that the algorithms are going to show that even more in our feed. And I think that's such a great image of what life is like also, that what I engage in is going to be given energy and space in my thoughts and in my life. And it's just really nice to come back to the truth that I don't have to. It's okay to let some things go and to choose what I want to see grow in my life. There are some more thoughts, but I want to hear from my sisters.
Thank you, Jenny. I love how I liked how you mentioned the filters, because lens perspective to talk about it from. Um, and it's really a great way to meet people where they're at, because we all talk with specific when we share, and so communicating it from the lens and viewpoint of a filter, it just gives somebody might be able to resonate with what you're saying. And so I really liked that you used that specific word to explain what was coming up for you. The other thing I heard you was that you don't have to always respond, and not responding is also a response, right? So like that says a lot in itself, and that's a choice that you get to make, to respond or not. And you have control of that, claim that for yourself. And as you were talking about what's coming up in your feed and what you choose to engage with, even if you want to respond to give a different, and you make the choice not to perpetuate the algorithm to show you more of those things that you don't want to see, you also have the choice to remove, so that you don't see those things anymore, right? So if we can take it a step further, click those three dots on LinkedIn specifically, but on other platforms, you can click those dots at the top of that post that you aren't resonating with or aligning with, and tell that algorithm, no, I don't like it. I don't see any types of stuff like this, or I don't want to see stuff from this person, and remove it so that it's not even a factor in weighing on your energy, positive or negatively. And then you don't even have to decide anymore, because you just make that decision once, that this does not align with me. And so that it doesn't keep coming up in whether you engage with it or not that first time. So I love that you're sharing it from the perspective of social media too, as we don't take our conversations there. So that gives people a different perspective of how they might be keeping things on their side of the fence, what's their responsibility and what's not. So thank you, Jenny, for all those insights. Stina, I'm coming over to you now. What's coming to you when we talk about responsibility?
I saw Linda flash her mic. Linda, did you have something you wanted to add first?
Yeah, well, based on Jenny, like I love that. That's a great example, and just to be clear, that was coming from Jenny, and not saying that if we see something we don't align with, to not engage with it. It's just know that if you do, you're going to get the opportunity to keep doing it, which is fine until you're not fine with it, and then okay, bye. So I just want everybody like get grounded in the clarity that we're not saying don't engage with things you don't agree with, or don't give your opinion because you'll have to give it again, or anything like that. And I know that's not what Jenny was saying. So yeah, get out there and challenge things. It's great.
Cool. Thanks. So the word that was coming up for me was ease. It's something that has come up in conversations with Linda lately, that I want ease in my life. There's a gentleness and ease that I'm looking for, and this real sense of like groundedness, and I'm creating that. And so when you're creating that, you notice the things that are going against that, the things that are making it difficult to have ease. And for me, ease isn't about like everything is easy. It means that you allow things to be a little bit slower. You allow things to be intentional. You have an awareness of yourself, and you surround yourself with other people that also have an awareness of themselves, so that your exchanges are a mutual responsibility, instead of a situation where if you're in people pleasing, or you're having to like take care of everyone, or you're, like controlling things, that creates a lot of tension. There's not ease. You're not at ease with people around you, with your family, with your partner. You're not at ease when there's that like constant kind of like, oh, we're like butting heads, and uh not doing this together. So that kind of flow and ease, I think, comes from that responsibility. And I noticed in my 12-year-old this year, at towards the beginning of the school year, he had this um, situation in middle school. He said some things he didn't realize what they meant, and they were, taken the wrong way by other kids, and it turned into quite a little middle school drama fiasco. And he stayed home from school one day to kind of diffuse the situation. And I gave him a very long list of chores to do. It was not going to be a, video game day at home. And then I had him do Dr. Jen's umbrella assessment. And I had him do this for himself completely. I just handed it off to him and had him do it. He ranked himself the lowest in empathy. And it was a very accurate self-assessment that he did, and it was very honest. And I brought it up again with him this week and said, like, how do you feel like you're doing with that? Do you feel like that's something you've improved? And he was like, no, I don't really feel like it's improved. And I said, that's interesting, because I've actually noticed 3 specific times lately where I've seen you display a lot of empathy. Can I tell you about them? And I reflected back to him like experiences he had and named them empathy. And I think that awareness piece of just that he recognized I'm low in empathy and that's something I could work on. It started to bring energy into that area, and he has improved that. And he also said, I think that over time, Mom, I will just continue growing in empathy, because there will be things that I want in my life that I can't get without a certain level of empathy. And I was like, oh my goodness, like that is just like so wise. I said, Vigo, I think that's a really wise perspective to take, that, I will keep growing in that, like as life requires it, as I have more experiences. So I think that, that sense of ease comes from that responsibility. I'm seeing it grow in my kids, where they gain awareness, and then they work, they're working on things. And it's not maybe what we think of as adults, like I'm working on this, I'm going to therapy, I'm journaling, I'm reading the books, but like they are putting those pieces together. They're understanding, the impact of their actions, the way that things ripple out, what it takes. My son has expressed a lot of gratitude for me and what I do for him lately. And I was like, that's empathy. You're recognizing that, I'm keeping this whole ship afloat, as a single mom. And so there's just like, it's such a beautiful thing to feel that like grow in my family, that there's this mutual like understanding. And my younger kiddo has like expressed ways that they want to have time spent with them, like ways that they need to connect, ways that they need to feel loved. And that's allowed me, I mean, literally a list. And I'm like, cool, we're making these things happen. We did the mall shopping where, I've been intentional about like, okay, let's have a special frozen yogurt treat once a week. Like there's these little things that I can then attend to, and I'm just seeing it like create this flourishing in my kids. And yeah, I'm just really excited about that.
Thank you. I love when you give these real life examples from your family and kids of like how, because they're so related. So many have kids that they're raising and they want to be better parents, but they also want to give their kids the space to figure for themselves. And you always have such beautiful examples of life lessons that your kids are figuring out for themselves, and you just beautifully guiding them along the way. So they're so timely during these conversations, right? For you to be able to share them openly with us. So thank you. You did mention the little things, a bigger thing, right? And that so beautifully leads me to Dorit, because she knows all about how important things can be. So Dorit, would you like to talk a little bit more about the little things and how that relates to responsibility?
Yeah, thank you, Shell. Of course, I can I can talk about how I chose to raise my kids. It wasn't a big things, but it was a ton of little things, and when they had done something that I didn't accept or wasn't acceptable to keep on doing, I didn't want to throw a whole tantrum and go to your room and that kind of a thing. So I always just swallowed and said, well, this is not something that I can accept. So I'll think about something as a consequence, and I'll get back to you. Because I didn't want to hand out like any consequences, and then afterwards, I was too strict, or oh my goodness. And after this, my kids actually said that the wait was the worst thing. That was the punishment when they were waiting for me to actually say what I thought was appropriate for their consequence. And the same thing, how I reacted when they did something good. Then we chose to do like experiences, and not a prize like a whatever ice cream or a doll or whatever a thing. We did things together. So I gave them an option to choose between two things that we could do, and I could pick one of the two. So that could be like just me and that kid going for a beach walk with the dogs, or it could be us having a nice cafe experience together, just me and that kid. Because when you have several kids, it's important that they get a little bit of alone time and feel special. So for me, that was the little things that I used to be responsible with. Yeah.
I love hearing you talk about how you had conversations with your children to let them be part of that conversation of what do you want to do? How do you want to be rewarded? What experience do you want to have? Because it made them more active participants in their own up. and they could feel good even than they already did when they did something positive and were getting rewarded for it. They could really part of that, like, let it sink in more, that you felt that and could appreciate them in their way. So I love that you brought them into the conversation to give them that opportunity and to take responsibility for what they wanted and to communicate that to you. Linda, I see you've unmuted yourself as well. So definitely what's coming up for you right now?
I love how Dorrit didn't open a can of worms on herself. She came up with 2 choices. She kept the boundaries there too. I love that part. And like your kid said, it was the waiting that was killing him. And I know you guys have heard this. Most of you have heard this one. I worked with a psychologist who worked with youth that were in trouble with the law, and he actually worked more with the parents. And he would say, how many of you have buttons that your kids push? And all the hands go up, and he goes, and who showed you where those buttons are? And some of the parents didn't get it. That was the very first place he started with them. And then he talked about how in the system, you don't know what your consequence is going to be. You might go to jail like right away. You might, get sentenced to prison. You might this, you might that. And so he really believed in not setting up pre-consequences. So like if you don't take out the trash, then you can't have TV tonight or something like that. It was that because the world isn't set up that way. The world is a big unknown. And I really appreciated that teaching from him. So it tickles me pink to know that Dorrit's out. Of course, Dorrit did it that way. She really understands psychology from all the work that she does as a breeder and raising dogs herself. So thanks, Dorrit.
Thank you. Can I just quickly say that when it comes to dogs, it's the complete opposite, because then you have to be like spot on every time, and you can't delay your response a second, because dogs only like learn in 5-second bulks. So if you're later than 5 seconds with your response, you tag that response to a different action. So that's why it was a big difference, if you call the dog and the dog comes, you have to be, yay, yeah, come on, yeah, great, and if it's biting on furniture, it's like, no, stop it. So it was constantly that shifting back and forth, and it was lovely for me to be able to take the time with the kids to actually, I'm gonna have this little time to go over this and actually not respond until I'm ready. Yeah.
I'm so glad you came up with the clarification, because my head was with psychology and imprints and patterns and knowing kids so well and knowing the dogs so well. So that was a really important clarification. Thank you, Dorrit.
No, my pleasure.
My brain is searching for this right now, because what's coming up for me, and I'll try to explain this as simply as possible, is actually, F it. I'll go back to something I said earlier. Okay, I haven't even gotten the thought out, but I'm like shitting on myself right now. Earlier I had that how beautiful it was that Jenny gave us different words to describe and think about something from a different perspective. She used the word specifically. I talked about a viewpoint, or knowing where it ends and the other person begins. We've talked about things from a few perspectives, right? And filters and different lenses. And what's really beautiful here about the entire conversation is that we've all taken responsibility for the things that like we see and believe. And we're actively putting these things into practice. Like, I'm going to shit on myself again here when I say this. Sometimes, like when I'm just, I feel, I'm projecting now, that it comes off like that I'm just everybody else, because I think of myself as the cheerleader, right? I'm the motivator. I'm motivated to like do this and this. And I don't always give real world experiences of how this my own life. And I project that other people are going to see me as like a fake, or that I'm just like building things up for everyone else and not myself. But the reality, I am working on myself so much. And in this, I feel like I'm going to cry because I'm getting like open right now without giving you a real world example. I'm dancing around it, right? That's what it feels like I'm doing. And so it feels like that's how you're going to receive it, because that's how it feels to me when I'm explaining things or over explaining. But I am going through so many things in my real world that I am comfortable sharing it. And when it feels like I'm building everybody else up, it's me also taking in those moments. I can put into action for myself. So while I shit on myself for the things that it seems like other people will gravitate towards, really probably doing myself a disservice by not telling you the things that I'm actually implementing in my life and trying to see how they work. And I will a real world example right now, which happened earlier this week. And no, my family is not part of this story. Because a lot of my stories are related to the way that I was raised and my experiences there. This is a health-related story. You've often heard me talk about my burnout. And something that you may not hear me talk about as often, although is my thyroid issues. And a lot of those symptoms for the last 8 to 10 years or more have overlapped. They do overlap. They're very similar. The fatigue, the stress, the not feeling rested even after hours and hours of sleep. Napper, but it's not restful. There's so many similarities. And I go through these things in parallel. Like, I'm recovering from burnout, my thyroid are ongoing. But they're manageable, right? And so earlier this week, I had gotten results from a doctor, and I had asked her previously, can we do this full panel? Because I had done one years ago, but I couldn't find it anywhere. It was a different doctor have it in her system. I'm like, it would just be good to have it as like a baseline. She came back and she looked at the results and she was like, I don't think you ever actually had this. I've been taking it back to a previous conversation that we had about unseen labels. I had been labeled as this thing for years by doctors. And all it took was one test for her to say, I don't think you ever actually had this. But the treatment is still the same. For years, burnout and this issue with the thyroid, and because the symptoms overlap and it's hard to know which one is what, or what is really from burnout and what is really from my thyroid or lack thereof, everything in between. And this is applicable in all areas. I'm just talking from a health standpoint. And I've been asking doctors, practitioners for years, can we go deeper? Can we get things on a molecular level? Can we test blood? Can we test nutrients? Can we look for deficiencies? Can we actually figure out what's going on and why this, not just have this thing, let's treat it on the surface. And just like I talk about in my loving yourself and selfish, and it was hard for me to see that like I needed to advocate for myself, even though I was asking others for support. It has been eye-opening for me to realize that like I could ask all the medical professionals in the world to dig deeper with me, and I'm still trust to give me their expert advice because I trust them as my medical professionals. But if I don't keep advocating for myself and asking for what I need, if it isn't being addressed, then it's never going to be tackled. So I say all that to say, and yes, I did say that simply, but I said a lot. am realizing more and more just how true it is that I need to take responsibility for my own well-being and advocate for myself, even when other people are unwilling to dive deeper or even see it once it's presented to them. So that's saying this is a real world experience for me, and I'm actively trying to figure out where I can be more responsible in taking and my path. So thank you for listening to that little rant. But I felt like I often don't give examples of my own real world, real time experiences. I either tell you about a previous thing from ages ago, where it's safe and I'm removed from it a little, or let everybody else share and then I can relate to it. But this is me not doing things from a distance, because I want you to know that I am with you and I can build you up, but I also need to build myself up, and I take full responsibility for that. I'm not going to dance around it anymore. So
you get to.
Yes, I get to. So thank you for allowing me to take the stage a little bit more right now as I full responsibility for my health and well-being. And I promise I will, for myself and for all of you that are watching and listening and sharing, I want you to know that I am a real person who is going through real things, and I want you to be able to see that more transparently, even if it feels like I'm hiding behind it. This has been a high vibe conversation to the max, at least for me, because I'm really feeling it right now. I don't know about all. If you'd like to have more in-depth conversations with any one of us, please feel free to book a call individually with us, so that we can talk to you more completely about whatever it is that you're going through. We invite you to have these high vibe conversations. Pop on the screen, and I'll make sure to share it in the chat as well, so that you don't have to in and get it right yourself. I'll make that easier for you to just click and go. Again, join us for more high vibe conversations. If you like having conversations with us, or even just watching from a distance and resonating with things, and you're celebrating, supporting us, we like that too. So please make sure to follow along, connect with us on any of the platforms where you can find us: LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. The platforms go on and on these days. Until next, I will say bye for now, and thanks for being here.